BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The UN Secretary-General has warned that the level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere is rising relentlessly again after a brief dip during the pandemic. Antonio Guterres said he was alarmed by just how far the world was off course in tackling climate change. He said keeping global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius would be impossible without immediate cuts in emissions on a huge scale.
We really are out of time. We must act now to prevent further irreversible damage. COP26 this November must mark that turning point. By then, we need all countries to commit to achieve net zero emissions by the middle of this century and to present clear, credible, long-term strategies to get there.
Italy has become the first country in Europe to make it compulsory for all workers to have the COVID Green Pass. Those who ignore the decree could be fined up to €1,500. Mark Lowen reports.
From the 15th of October, the approximately 23 million people employed in Italy's public and private sectors will be obliged to present a green pass when they show up for work, a QR code that proves at least one COVID vaccination, a negative test or recovery from the virus. Failure to comply could carry suspension without pay and a hefty fine. The aim is to persuade the roughly 4 million workers who have not yet had the jab to do so. And despite relatively small protests, polls suggest the majority of Italians support the move.
The Dutch Foreign Minister Sigrid Kaag has resigned after being formally censured in Parliament over her handling of the Afghan evacuation crisis last month. MPs said the government was slow to respond and many Afghans couldn't leave. Here's Anna Holligan.
Hundreds of people who should have been evacuated from Kabul were left behind after the city fell to the Taliban, even though there had been warnings and MPs had been calling for action for months. Ms Kaag said the vote left her no choice but to step down from her post. Parliament has judged that the Cabinet has not acted responsibly, she said in a short resignation speech. I can do no more than accept the consequences. The minister must go if the policy is rejected. The Netherlands managed to evacuate almost 2,000 Dutch and Afghan nationals before flights stopped due to the United States troop withdrawal.
UN investigators have accused judges and prosecutors in Venezuela of playing a significant role in the torture and abuse of government opponents. The head of a UN fact-finding mission to Venezuela said judges routinely received orders from the government of President Nicolas Maduro on how to decide on judgments. The mission said they failed to protect victims from arbitrary arrest and deprived them of the right to defence. World news from the BBC. The US Secretary of State has attempted to ease French anger over a new nuclear security deal announced between the US, Australia and Britain. Antony Blinken described France as a vital partner in Asia. The agreement scuppered a major submarine deal that the French had struck with the Australians. But Mr Blinken said the US wanted to deepen transatlantic cooperation and there'd be continued close cooperation with NATO and the European Union.
I want to emphasize that there is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and our Pacific partners. This partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom is a signal that we're committed to working with our allies and partners, including in Europe, to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific.
The leaders of the two recent coups in Mali have been granted amnesty by the interim parliament. Colonel Assimi Goïta and other army officers involved in overthrowing President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta in August last year and interim President Ba Ndao in May this year will not face prosecution. Colonel Goïta has said he will respect next February's deadline for civilian elections. The inventor of the pocket calculator, Clive Sinclair, has died aged 81. The British entrepreneur also helped popularise the home computer. He had less successful forays into the worlds of miniature televisions and electric vehicles. In a BBC interview, Sir Clive explained what had driven him to come up with his inventions.
What I'm concerned with always is trying to find something that'll make life better in some way. Years ago, the need, for example, was the idea that pocket calculators would be a marvellous thing, and so I worked on that. And then I thought that if people could have a computer at home to get their hands on very cheaply, then they'd lose their fear of computers and they would learn to appreciate them and would find this exciting and stimulating. And so I got involved in that.
BBC News.